not guilty to all 34 counts. He later spoke at Mar-a-Lago and took shots at Bragg.
The criminal is the district attorney because he illegally leaked massive amounts of grand jury information, for which he should be prosecuted, or at a minimum, he should resign.
Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene gave a speech at a rally across the street from the New York courthouse in protest to the indictment of former President Trump, alongside the New York Young Republicans, a group with ties to white nationalists.
This is what happens in communist countries, not the United States of America. We have to take a stand against the injustice, the corruption, and the communist Democrats.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre declined to comment on the criminal investigation, but did say it is not a priority of focus for the administration. Following President Biden's meeting with the Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, the president said it remains to be seen if artificial intelligence poses dangerous risks, but stressed tech companies have a duty to ensure their products are safe before they are made public. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy signed an executive order Tuesday which grants members of the LGBTQIA plus community equal access to healthcare services in the state. Murphy says the order comes as many across the nation are experiencing attacks that undermine equality, dignity, and safety.
I'm incredibly proud of the work our administration has done to put New Jersey at the forefront of the LGBTQIA plus rights, including expanding legal protections.
Murphy said the executive order establishes New Jersey as a safe haven for gender-affirming health care. During a luncheon, children's author and Key West resident Judy Bloom criticized Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for banning topics from being discussed in schools and said teachers and librarians are under fire and threat.
They are criminalizing teachers and librarians. It's not just that they're threatening their jobs, they're threatening them. They could go to jail. And all because they stand up for the rights of the students they teach.
I'm Alex Gonzalez for Pacifica Network and Public News Service. Find our 8 Trust indicators to support transparency and accuracy at publicnewsservice.org.
You're listening to Northern Lights Public Radio on 102.7 KCHW. Tooele!
Good morning. It's KCHW 102.7. Oh, man, getting started on a Wednesday with the one and only Mr. Mike Metz. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
All right.
Hey, Zoom must have done something.
Okay.
Because I look thinner.
You do. It's. I think your background's maybe on a little. It looks like the side of your head's gone, but Mike is okay. Maybe Loretta took a frying pan to you?
I don't know. It sure does. Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm thinking, man, did I sleep on that side all night?
Your background's probably turned up a little too high or not enough light. So, but Mike's okay, despite what he looks like.
So if I turn this way, does it look better?
Not really. No. I could block.
Well, actually, it's probably not enough light because. The sun's coming up because it's a beautiful day today, and I have to close my curtains in this room because it faces the east.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, if I raise it up, I get a halo.
Yeah, we don't want to see that. No fake news here.
That's right.
All right, you said 22 this morning in Tooele, right?
It was, at least at my house. It was a little bit on the cool side.
All right. Going to reach all the way up to 51 today under partly cloudy skies. Down to 32 tonight, clear to partly cloudy. 52 for your Thursday, 42 for an overnight low. Cloudy skies staying with us. Then the rain moves in for Friday. 90% chance of rain right now. They've upgraded that. 47 for a high, 35 for low. That should take care of the last of your snow.
I would hope so. I'm getting tired of it. In fact, I talked to Ron May the other day, and we got parts of the golf course they can't even get to yet.
Wow. Well,
Exactly.
Saturday will be a big help. 56 and 41, 20% chance of rain. Rain for Sunday, 55 and 45. And I'm sure by Monday your snow will be gone. 52 and 35 with a 77% chance of rain on Monday. So after Thursday, you've got a few wet days to help rinse the rest of the snow away. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm curious how full Chewila Creek is getting as things warm up. This seems like a year,
Well,
because sometimes it floods. This seems like a year where it could flood for sure.
It could be. In fact, I think I saw something the other day where 49 degrees north got 10 inches of new snow over the weekend.
Oh, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, they're still skiing. In fact, they expanded their skiing to all week to the end of their season.
That's nice. All right. Get in
Yeah,
your
which I
last
was
shot
trying
of
to-
skiing.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to think, when's the last time during spring break
Kids
that
could go
they were
skiing.
open during the week?
Yeah,
It's been a while.
totally. All right, buddy. I think we got a few minutes here. We can roll out some morning jokes. I got some good ones for you. I'm tired of everybody picking on me for being short, so I came up with tall jokes for this morning. All right.
Okay.
All right.
But I'm shrinking, so be careful.
Okay, but you're still really tall. All right. I mean, every day, when I left, you gave me that poster of twins.
Right.
Because he's so tall and I'm so short. So I see that every day and think of you, Mike. And so those jokes that are just seconds away are all for you.
Okay.
All right, what do you got for me this morning?
Oh, okay. Well, I got my infamous or famous dad jokes.
Okay,
So are you ready?
I'm
Do you
totally
have,
ready.
Do you have your dunce cap on?
I have my dunce cap. That's just normally what my hair looks like, buddy.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So which city in California do all the dentists visit?
Oh, I don't know.
Los Angeles.
Wow.
This one you ought to know.
Okay.
Okay. How do you organize a space party?
A space party. I have
Yeah,
no idea.
You plan it.
Oh, you got me.
I gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay. So which hand is better to write with?
The right hand.
Neither. It's better to write with a pen.
Oh, he got me again. You're right. I should have had that
You've been
one.
up 3 hours longer than me. You should be sharp.
Not really, but I'm usually
Oh.
lightheaded, so
Oh, okay.
naturally.
Okay. All right. Well, last but not least, how did the Vikings communicate?
Oh, man. How did the Vikings communicate? No idea.
By Norse code.
Oh, mine
Okay.
mine might be just that bad. So
Okay.
for Mike this morning, tallest guy I know. How tall are you?
6'3".
6'3". That's pretty tall. I'm sure there's taller people out there, but I don't want to meet them. How do you make a tall person look more awkward?
A dull person look more
How
awkward.
tall person look more
Oh,
tall?
oh.
Tall. These are tall jokes. How do you make a tall person look more awkward?
Stand next to Scott.
Basically, yeah, but pretty much, how do you make a tall person look more awkward? You can't. What's Mike's worst fear?
Door jams.
Oh, that you're close. Ceiling fans. I once was DJing in a nightclub and a fight broke out, and this really tall guy thought he would get up on top of one of the stand-up tables you stand up to around the bar to get a better view of the fight. And he got up on top of the table, and I'm watching from the DJ booth. I'm watching all the fracas. And he stands straight up into the ceiling fan, hits him in the forehead, and takes him right to the floor. It's pretty entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that with my hands where I've raised my hands.
Yeah.
You know,
So what's one of Mike's benefit about being so tall?
I can see forever now.
It's exactly it. You can, no matter where Mike is in Chewila, he can always see his house, even when he's down in the valley.
Yeah, you know what? One of my most aha tall moments was I had the opportunity a while back to be in Beijing, and I got on their subway. I'm standing in it, going from one location to another, and I'm like an NBA guy.
Oh.
Everybody is shoulder level or shorter.
Yeah. Children are pointing and laughing.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike's so tall that
Well,
after knee surgery, he had to use ladders as crutches. Mike's so tall he could sit at the Golden Gate Bridge and soak his feet in the ocean. Oh.
oh, yeah. But see, I have a long body and short legs.
And then the fish float to the surface. All
That's
right.
right.
Mike's so tall he lights his cigars with the sun. Mike, you're so tall, God had to put you together outside. And my last one, Micah, what do tall people look like when they run?
One of those flexible, like blow up dolls.
Oh, you look like a blow-up doll.
I'm trying to think of the name of them. Aren't they Guppy or something like that?
I'm so disappointed with my Amazon order. No, tall people look like slinkies when they run. There you go. All right. Enough with the dumb jokes. There you go. All right. We'll move along to news headlines. Scary weather going across the United States, especially in Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, a little lighter, Michigan, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. Even West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and upper New York getting hammered with high winds, rain, and tornadoes. Dangerous weather, they're saying today, for some 85 million Americans.
Didn't I read this morning that like North Dakota and South Dakota are basically closed down because of blizzards?
I didn't catch that one on this list. They were really focusing on the east. The storm
yeah, I read this thing where I-90, I-94, I-29, I-25 in Wyoming and the Dakotas are basically shut down until this evening.
Wow. And they do that. You don't see that in Washington or even here in Maine where they have the big arms that come across the freeway so you can't even get on. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. In fact, they said I-94 is closed from Grand Forks to Bismarck.
Wow, that's a big space. Yeah, a couple hundred miles.
Looking at getting, and they're only getting like 10 inches of snow. But the problem is it's a 55-mile-an-hour wind.
My dad used to, winters were a lot harsher, but my dad used to tell stories of how they would have 20-foot snowdrift between the house and the barn, and they would have to put a tunnel through it to be able to get to the barn. So crazy.
Well, even where I grew up in eastern Montana, it was the same thing. It wasn't unheard of in the wintertime to have snowdrift start at the peak of a roof and work its way down.
Yep. We never built snow forts when I was a kid. We always tunneled. We always tunneled. All right. Let's see here. In Spokane, this one out of Creme 2 from yesterday. Although Washington has the second highest minimum wage in the country, Spokane renters are having a hard time even affording modest one-bedroom apartments. They're saying at like 15, at the minimum wage of 15, I think it's 29, you can only afford a one-bedroom apartment. You need to make $19 an hour to afford a two-bedroom apartment, $28 an hour to afford a three-bedroom apartment in Spokane. And if you could find a four-bedroom, $33.56 an hour you need to make in order to be able to afford that rental unit. NLIHC estimates the average Spokane renter earns $42,000 annually, which was, more than I thought. Right. That works out to about $20 an hour. And they're saying with this wage, an individual should be able to spend approximately $1,000 per month on rent. Good luck finding a place in Spokane now for $1,000 a month.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Chihuahua's been creeping up there towards that direction too.
Very scary.
Well, it's just a factor of not enough housing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of it. But and when you start seeing articles on startup homes being $300,000 plus, you have to start thinking about maybe we ought to look at a different alternative.
Yep. Something needs to, they can't keep raising the minimum wage either. That doesn't balance out.
No. And I think what a lot of it, I mean, back when when I first, went to college and started looking for a place to live, buying a manufactured home, or back then they were all called mobile homes, was basically a starter home. And I think, that in itself has gone by the wayside, because from what I can tell anyway, manufactured homes now really are manufactured. They're factory built, and they come in and they're not that much less expensive actually than a stick built house on site. It's so there's got to be a solution there somewhere. I mean, and I know that in the city they're trying to figure out how to do that, because Chihuahua's got to, when I see a home for sale that's 2 bedrooms, 1 bath on 3 acres for only $799,000.
Only just a drop in the bucket.
Exactly.
That your kids will still be paying for by the time you pass. Crazy. And the what's and the house payment on that? What's that? $2,000 a month? Or more?
Well, if you put 25% down, it's probably closer to $4,000 a month.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It amazes me that people can afford that. All right.
Yeah.
Looking at some of the hot spots for water problems around the United States, good news for Lake Mead. Back in early March, most probable 24-month study published in March was projected that Lake Mead would drop approximately 1,000 feet above sea level. Which was very low for. I've been there. You can see over the past 20 years the bathtub rings on the mountains of how far the waters went down. They said as of yesterday morning, Lake Mead's level was 3 feet above the projected level. As of 1 week ago, snowpack has built the snow water equivalent stored in the Colorado Rockies to 158% above average. Now, how long this will delay Lake Mead going dry is hard to say. We've all heard, I think, on the news about the big lake in California that was bone dry, that is now filled back up. And the San Luis Reservoir, which has really filled up, as well as several others. They said, let's see, as Saturday, it was 1/4, or let's see, it sat at, before the storms came through California over the past couple months, it sat at just 1/4 of its capacity, and as of today, it is 98% full. So I don't know how long this is going to carry on, California, if they go right back into drought this summer, but they did, and Arizona, but both states, a huge influx of water to the reservoirs, which is really going to. They've been talked about communities in Arizona where they've literally stopped water service to them, which is pretty amazing. I mean, what do you do when you have a $600,000 home and no water coming out of the faucet? You can't even resell that.
No. Well, maybe you go back to, when I grew up, we used to have a cistern that you had to haul water into, an underground system. And so basically, I can't remember the timing, maybe once every 2 weeks or whatever, you'd go into town with a 500-gallon water tank and fill it, and then come back and put water in the cistern. And then you were very, well, because I was a kid, but they were very careful on how they used that water.
If you live, I spent some time in Arizona, and if you live outside of a metropolitan area, to any effect, that's all you see is pickups with the plastic water haulers on the back of them, because everybody's hauling their own water. Things like when I was visiting laundromats, they've pulled all the sinks out of the laundromats because people will go in there and fill up their water jugs. And of course, that's a huge expense for the guy that owns the laundromat. So he pulled out all of his sinks, and he said, then I'll come in and I'll catch people putting the $1.50 in the washing machine and leaving the lid up so it just keeps filling, and putting jugs inside the washing machine to fill up. So he's trying to figure out a way to beat that, because he says his water bills, are enormous. So you don't think about those kind of things.
Yeah. Well, I remember back in the 70s, I had a good friend of mine that went to law school, and he grew up in northern Montana, up on the High Line. And one of the things that one of the questions I had is, what part of law are you going to be involved in, and all that? And he says, water rights. He says people are, concerned about all these other types of things. But he says, I can tell you right now, 40 years from now, if you understand water rights and you can deal with water rights, you'll be in the driver's seat. And do you see that now even here?
Yes. Yeah. It's a big deal a few years ago. Some laws passed in Washington. Scary stuff.
Exactly.
More scary stuff. It sees more and more countries turning to China for help. Could that leave, the West at a disadvantage? One of our neighbors just did it on Tuesday. President of Mexico asked China for help curbing Mexico's production of fentanyl, despite his claim last month to the U.S. that Mexico neither produces nor consumes fentanyl.
Well, by going to China, that'll be good company because they never produce or concern themselves on anything anyway, right?
No. And I think as they say that's where most of the fentanyl is coming from, is out of China. So, but I'm so tired of politicians, and it's not just America, politicians just saying anything. As we well know in this country, it's out of control. Here was one. I think I mentioned this yesterday. No new details yet, but I accidentally had it up here. But I'll share it with you, Mike. Texas man bragged about stealing $50,000 from a Mexican drug cartel while hanging out at a house party. He was kidnapped less than 2 hours later and is still missing. So my advice is, if you steal from a cartel, don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it. Yeah.
Yes. Don't mention
brag
it.
about it.
That's right. Scary quote from Putin this morning. Putin said Finland joining NATO didn't pose a threat, but now that it's a done deal, he's warning it's going to have to take action. So are they going to take a war on in two fronts? I mean, what do they mean by that? News headlines on that are just so scary about what's going on. All right. Donald Trump, of course, arraigned yesterday. Probably not a good place for him to get arraigned is in New York, because they said protesters were out on both sides, but that people speaking in, Donald Trump's behalf or for him, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, couldn't be heard by the crowd because they were so overwhelmed by the anti-Trump protesters they couldn't hear. So New York's probably not a good city to try and do that in. Probably also why they haven't had riots and stuff. They can't find enough Trump supporters in New York.
Able to do that.
Yes, hours after the same judge warned Trump not to make remarks that could endanger others, he started. Just hours afterwards, he says, "This is where we are right now. I have a Trump-hating judge with a Trump-hating wife and family whose daughter worked for Kamala Harris and now receives money from the Biden-Harris campaign," referring to the judge Juan Merchan. Trump did not provide or substantiate claims, of course. Former president was speaking to his supporters in Mar-a-Lago last night after he got home. In his first public remarks after he was arraigned in New York, Trump faces, of course, 34 felony charges for falsifying business records. Trump's comments blasting Merchan came 6 hours after he warned the former president not to make comments likely to jeopardize the safety or well-being of any individuals. My curiosity here is, can he now make him put him in contempt of court over this?
Well, what they were contemplating to begin with was a gag order on everybody. And they elected not to do that. But, I think hopefully that the judge will come back and say, how are you going to get a fair trial when you got somebody out there on both sides actually not to, pick a side, spewing forth stuff. And so, like we were talking before the show started, it's really just becoming a bad act,
yes.
Of a big play. I mean, and like I say, I told you last night, one of my favorite things I do is watch the BBC World News, before I go to bed. And 15 minutes of the 30 minutes last night, was dealing with the stuff that's going on, I'll just say back east at this point. And like I told you, it's just sucking the oxygen out of the good news.
Yeah, or other things we should know about. There's just too much of it. Yeah, it's too bad they didn't use the gag order. The judge said, please refrain from making comments or engaging in conduct that has the potential to incite violence, create civil unrest, or jeopardize the safety or well-being of any individuals. Judge issued the warning to both sides, asking prosecutors to remind their witnesses not to make inflammatory public statements. Merchant encouraged Trump's defense team to do the same with Trump and anybody else you need to, his exact words. That didn't stop him from slamming Merchant and his family hours later. The former president on Tuesday evening recalled how Merchant presided over the criminal trial of the Trump organization in which Alan Weisselberg, the company's former CEO, pleaded guilty to financial crimes and testified. Trump said, what the prosecutors and judges did to that man, I will never forget because it's right out of the old Soviet Union. That's kind of your textbook anyway. Trump's public attacks on his critics, political opponents, or people he doesn't like have often included insults or criticism of his target's family members. Recently singled out Bragg's wife in a Truth Social post on Monday, calling the prosecutor's partner a Trump-hating wife in a similar fashion to how he attacked Merchant's family. Trump has also repeatedly attacked Elaine Chao, the wife of Republican Senator Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, calling her the racist nickname Coco Chow. Chow served 4 years, actually, as Trump's cabinet as Secretary of Transportation. Let's move on to some more people to support Trump, and I wonder what Ted Cruz's wife thinks about this, because when he sparred with Ted Cruz in the run-up to the 2016 election, Trump was embroiled in controversy for calling Cruz's wife Heidi ugly and posting remarks about her appearance on social media. That's just out of line. All right. Yeah. We went on too long with news headlines. I see Larry Fetter in the green room. He's going to join us just after 8 o'clock, and we're going to be talking about parks and recreation in Chewelah, and we've got a survey we want residents to take. We've already posted that on this morning's program on Facebook. If you would like to take that survey, maybe post some comments about it as well. We will share those with Larry. He's going to be in a few minutes. And here comes Mike with events that are happening in and around Chewelah.
You bet. And if you're on YouTube or Facebook, you'll see Mike's ghost.
The ghost of Mike Benz. Don't say that.
How you like that, huh?
Well, he is moving soon.
Okay, let's get rolling here. First of all, I'd like to thank the community for probably one of the most successful, if not the most successful, big home and garden show put on by the Chamber of Commerce here a couple of weeks ago. I know I was there a couple of times, and it was there were still a lot of people there, frankly, at 3 o'clock on Saturday when they were closing down. I know from the Creative District standpoint, we were very pleased with the number of people who came by and got introduced to the Creative District, and I talked to Jared Arnold a little bit, and him and Andrew were there and really pleased, and the golf course was really pleased, and so thank you. This was the first year for some new people putting that together. Christina at the Chamber, who's the new administrative assistant there, and Melissa Ellardings, who is in charge of the team leader for the marketing programs with the Chamber. So great job for everybody involved. A couple things coming up on the Earth Day, which is the 22nd of April, which happens to be on a Saturday this year. The annual citywide cleanup will happen. You need to stop by the Napa parking lot at 8 o'clock, bring your shovels, brooms, weed eaters, and of course your body. So you can help out. There's a whole, and I don't have them all listed, but there's a whole lot of different things going on with it this year. Sunshine Disposal has donated a couple of big dumpsters. And so they're going to encourage people to clean up their yards, and they'll be able to dump them in their dumpsters and some of the bigger items other than just the weeds and, the dust and stuff like that. So it's been very well organized and put together. And it's one of those unique features of Chewelah. I mean, I've lived in 4 or 5 different communities, and I can't think of another community that asks the community to come in and kind of clean up after winter. And as we were talking before the show, winter's been here for a while. So
now, a lot of times when they do this event, the Legion does a lunch afterwards. Have you found out about are they doing that again this year?
There is going to be a lunch afterwards. I'm not sure if it's the Legion off the top of my head, but there will be a 12 o'clock lunch. And I'm sure there'll be all kinds of promotion about what that is.
Okay. All right.
And then on the other thing is, I didn't realize it's been 13 years of the citywide garage sale. Did you know that?
I had no idea.
Yeah,
Wow.
I saw that.
13
And I'm
years.
thinking, man, it's been 13 years, so if you're brand new to the community, this is one of those events that really surprised Loretta and I when we moved here. They actually have a citywide garage sale. And it's very well attended. You can go to the Independent, and if you want to participate, I think it's like $15, and they'll put you on the map. And there are people that go out and collect those maps and come in from out of town just to go around Chihuahua looking at other people's treasures. So it's always the first Saturday in May, which is the 6th of May this year. And so, and it's funny because if you watch some of the social media posts and stuff like that, probably one of the more common questions being asked right now is, when is the citywide garage sale? It is the first Saturday of May.
Okay.
And if you want to get in their map, I think Andrea wants you to, stop by the Independent and give them their directions and all that good stuff by the Friday, the week before, so it can get in the paper on the Thursday before the May 6th.
Okay.
So, and that's, in fact, it's so popular. I've got neighbors of mine that are down south that will call me up and say, Mike, put us in,
Excellent.
that type of thing. So it's a unique thing to Chihuahua. And so if you want to become a Chihuahuan, participate in the citywide garage sale.
There you go.
Okay, then we move on. The Chihuahua Center for the Arts and the Arts Guild are sponsoring on the 22nd in the afternoon, after the citywide or the cleanup, a artist cleanup sale. And I thought this was pretty unique. The PACA Center or the Chihuahua Center for the Arts will be opened up with artists to bring in the stuff that they want to, art that they want to sell. And it's all over the board. And so please stop by. It's an opportunity for the various creatives in the community to get some things out there where they normally wouldn't have the opportunity to do that this time of year, because most of that stuff either happens on the first Thursday or during the summertime. Okay. So, which leads me to believe First Thursday is coming up this week. It's actually tomorrow. It's from 4:30 in the afternoon until I believe 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. Now that it's a little bit lighter at night. And all the usual suspects are there: the Flowery Trail Coffee House, the Yale Press, the Spotlight Gallery, the Creative District, Trails Inn Gallery, and McCunn Gallery are all participating this particular time around. And I know on the Spotlight Gallery, we have two artists that we're showcasing, and one of them, and her last name is No, and I'm going to get in trouble because I can't remember the first name, but she does this phenomenal artwork of animals. It's
Hillary No.
Okay, Hillary No.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm so happy she's going to be there, and then Eric Miller is going to be there with photography, and he's got a whole series on Northern Lights, kind of like Kat Brooks, and Kat Brooks has actually got the gallery locked up at Washington Federal for her Northern Lights showing. So if you, during the regular business hours, Monday through Friday, if you want to stop by Washington Federal, they've got a gallery in there. A lot of people don't know that, but you walk in there and it's been taken over by Kat Brooks. Also, Washington Federal is the Creative District is their sponsored business of the month. And as of today, I believe the community mural will be there so people can stop by and take a look at it. And then there'll be brochures and some things on the Creative District, a story behind the community mural. And this mural, by the way, Scott, is 4 feet by 4 feet, and it's mounted. It's on tiles, and these tiles were put together like a puzzle with a background of quartzite, and it's really, really cool. So if you haven't had the opportunity to see it, either at the Arts Guild show, but that's where it was actually rolled out, or the home show, then it'll be there all month at Washington Federal, so people can stop by and take a look at it, let's see, and also that's pretty much in the Creative District. Creative District just received some funding, a really nice grant coming from the Paul G. Allen Family Foundation. And so we're going to get together in the next week and put together some programs to be able to utilize that grant back inside the community. And I think personally, one of the things that is being proposed, which will probably have legs, is art classes. To bring in some of the creatives and be able to use the Huff Center and do some art classes with the money behind that grant. So
I think it was today the day you could start talking about a grant if you got it.
Yeah,
it was.
So April 4th.
So the Paul Allen Foundation actually infusing a lot of money into Chewelah because the radio station got an operational grant as well. So that's
good.
Awesome. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. You guys too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's awesome that they're picking Chewelah to help and share some of this money with. They're recognizing the problems that small towns have had since COVID and that continue, especially for nonprofit organizations. So.
Right. And one of the nice things about this particular grant cycle was they wanted to focus in on rural communities, and which normally doesn't happen, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can always apply for grants, but a lot of these grants have got like $25,000 match requirement and $50,000 match requirement. And, you know, when you have a match requirement of $25,000 and that's twice your annual budget, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas this one I really want to thank them publicly because it was an unrestricted grant and it didn't require a match. And so what that means is the radio station or us, I have no idea who else got it, did not have to come up with a match, but they can use it in the most effective place.
Yes.
And whether it's operations or whether it's providing another service to the community, like I think we're going to look at art classes, and those are pretty rare. I can tell you for somebody that's spent a year and a half or 2 years now just looking for grants, they're really pretty rare. So,
and that's a tough one for nonprofits because you're thrilled to get the grant and you want to talk about it and thank the people that gave it, but you don't want the perception to be that your organization got a grant and now you don't need help anymore.
Oh, no.
Because
Exactly.
that simply isn't true. And and I don't know if I share this either, but I will. Is things got so bad with COVID and memberships for the radio station that we still need those memberships and businesses to get announcements on the radio. At the end of the year, we had gotten a COVID grant in 2020. But at the end of the year, when we were doing taxes and going through the books, if it wasn't for the grant, the radio station would have ran out of money and left the airwaves in Chewelah due to people's inability because of what we were going through to support it. I understand that part of the equation, but we would have been off the air in October. I believe it was 2020 or it was 2021. I can't remember which year now looking back, but when I did the books, it's like, wow, if it wasn't for this grant, we would have ran out of money. We wouldn't have been able to pay our electric bill at the tower, and radio would have maybe left the airwaves, if someone didn't step forward. But so those grants have kept us operating, but that's kind of our goal and I'm taking up too much time here, but as we roll into 2023 is ways that we can do more membership drives and build more awareness about our county-wide radio station and how to support it. So.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point that this community is really is successful because of the huge volunteer corps that's behind it.
Yes,
but the upside to that is you've got this incredible pool of skills and commitment from people. The downside to it is a lot of people think it's volunteer. You still don't have operational costs, and the background operational costs are still there. I mean, I know on the creative district perspective, that's been our biggest challenge over the last 5 years, believe it or not, Scott. We're coming up on our 5th year anniversary.
Wow.
Is to build a pool of dollars to do operational things like rent the space and pay for advertising and do some local things where we can actually hire people. I mean, stuff like that, because operationally it's still there. So, and before I forget it, on the art side, the Chewelah Arts Guild is now in their scholarship cycle. So I'll encourage people to go to their website and They've got a very, very friendly, intuitive website. So congratulations to whoever put that together for the Arts Guild. It's phenomenal.
Okay.
Are you smiling? Are you the person that did that?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I'm usually
But
smiling. I don't get that.
oh, okay. But they're in their annual scholarship cycle, so there's several of them available in there. So I would encourage people, if you're looking for scholarships post high school, to go ahead and take a look at that.
Right.
And then
One thing before you do your last one that you missed, when just to backstep here, when you're talking about that I wanted to point out, when you're talking about the art walk tomorrow night, don't forget that this is the last showing for Winterfest. So the Winterfest
Right.
Fine Art closing show going on at the Trails End Gallery. You talked about a couple of the other locations, but I think that's good to point out for people that may have missed that, because we did the interview with Tim on the Winterfest Fine Art show, and some of that artwork is phenomenal. If you have not seen it, don't miss this last chance. It's the closing show at the Trails End Gallery tomorrow night during the art walk. Also, along with that, the Winterfest photography side, that is the closing show, and that one took place at the McCunn Gallery in the Mountain Market on Main. So there's
Right.
some more locations there too, and just what's going on at those. And then we better hustle here. We are at 8:01.
Okay, well, I'll be really quick here.
Okay.
All right, for the Rusty Putter and the golf course, we're still projecting opening on the 15th of April, so cross your fingers.
Melt, snow,
Like I
melt.
said at the top of the show, we still have a little bit of a snow problem up here, but Scott's promised us the weather to take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
Ron May, I visited with him last week, and they're bringing the ground screw back this week. And he said once we can get on the course, it won't take long to get it open. So 15th is our target date, and it came through the winter in excellent shape, which is,
Good.
the Rusty Putter. They'll have a new menu rolling out here in 2 weeks for the season. They have all new dining room furniture that theoretically was supposed to be here April 1st, so it's on its way. So that'll all be in place. And Easter brunch. They're doing their annual Easter brunch coming up on this Sunday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I'm not going to go over the menu, but you can go on the Facebook site for the Rusty Putter, and it's all posted there. And then the Mother's Day brunch, put that on your calendar. That's probably our most attended brunch of the year, because hopefully, if the weather cooperates, I'd say 9 times out of 10 it's out on the patio, and it's a phenomenal day as far as that goes.
When does the restaurant at the golf course, the Rusty Putter, go 7 days a week again? What's the date for that?
They generally will follow the golf opening of the golf course.
Okay.
And so I know this last weekend they were doing interviews, and thank you to those that were able to make it. They had a good 2 days actually of interviewing people for the restaurant and the golf side for the seasonal help. It's basically follows that. I mean, once the golf course goes open, then we have to, have the ability, at least for limited service, until May. But hopefully I'll know that all next week, so I can bring that, on the 12th of April.
Okay.
And get it out there. And then I'll, get it to you so you can update the ad and all those
good deal.
things.
All right.
And that's it.
That's it. All right. Good job, Mike Bentz, the nonprofit lowdown for the city of Chihuahua. We're going to go to break, thank our sponsors, bring you some news, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about parks and recreation in Chihuahua with our technical consultant, Larry Fetter. So stand by. It's Northern Lights Public Radio. We are KCHW Chihuahua. Good morning, Larry.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Hey. Oh,
All right.
we can see you.
Yay.
Yeah, I really upped my technology. Hi, Scott.
Good morning. So we are, just so you know, we're live on, we can't stop the feed when we're chatting behind the scenes. We're not going over the radio, but we are going out over Facebook and YouTube and our website. Just wanted to make sure we could hear you and get the camera set up for the next segment there.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
You sound good. As people, as you tend to get more relaxed once we're broadcasting, you tend to lean back in that chair and get further away from your microphone. So just kind of a reminder to stay close to it. If you're just using a laptop or something, stay close to that microphone.
I am, thank you.
All right, I'm going to send news down the line. We have news going, and then we've got a couple of our sponsor thank you announcements, and then we'll be back live with you, Larry.
All right, super. Thank you. I'm going to grab some coffee.
Do it. You got about 5 minutes.
Sounds good.
India has abstained from voting at the United Nations Human Rights Council resolution to extend the investigation into Russia's alleged war crimes in Ukraine. The resolution was passed nonetheless, with 28 out of 47 members voting in favour of an investigation. Delhi has now abstained from all 4 UNHRC resolutions concerning the war in Ukraine. Ishan Garg has more from New Delhi.
India calls these abstentions its way of showing the country's commitment to multilateralism. It's calling for peace through dialogue. India's permanent representative to the United Nations says Delhi's approach to the conflict remains people-centric, which is why the country is continuing to send aid to Ukraine. But it is also having to walk a diplomatic tightrope as India continues to buy Russian defense supplies and oil amid rising pressure from the West to alienate Moscow. Analysts say India's abstention from all Ukraine-related votes at the UN is a direct result of this precarious position. Ishan Garg, New Delhi.
The husband of Scotland's former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has been arrested. Peter Murrell is being questioned as part of an investigation into the finances of the Scottish National Party. John Beaver reports.
Peter Murrell was the chief executive of the Scottish National Party for 14 years. He was taken into custody on Wednesday morning. At the same time, police were also seen at SNP headquarters as part of a probe into the party's finances. Mr. Murrell is often highlighted as a key reason for the SNP's success in 4 consecutive Scottish Parliament elections. He stepped down last month after taking responsibility for misleading statements about party membership numbers. He left his post at roughly the same time his wife, Nicola Sturgeon, resigned as the First Minister of Scotland for personal reasons, citing the brutality of the job. John Beaver reporting.
And media tycoon Rupert Murdoch has reportedly called off his engagement to an ex-police chaplain just weeks after announcing it. And Leslie Smith would have become Mr. Murdoch's 5th wife after his recent divorce from 4th wife Jerry Hall. Vanity Fair reported the split. Rupert Murdoch has not yet commented. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today in more detail at Russia, now taking the helm of the UN Security Council. It is Moscow's turn to hold the rotating presidency, which is shared out on a monthly basis among 14 other members. Russia, of course, is also a permanent 5 member of the Security Council, with veto powers over any measure that comes before it. And the fact that it's now occupying the presidency of the Council at a time when the Kremlin is waging war in Ukraine has been greeted with consternation in Kiev and elsewhere. Bob McMahon is with America's Council on Foreign Relations.
There have been calls for years for reforming the council, including the structure of it, who wields a veto and so forth. They are circular arguments that will never get resolved because no permanent member is ever going to give up the veto right. It just has to do with the way this body was formed in the post-war era. The UN has tried to reform around the edges, and the UN is enormous and involved in all sorts of things. By its very nature, being a universal organization, it's going to come under scrutiny, if not criticism, for the way in which it allows its very diverse membership to behave. So it's going to be just yet another test for the UN. Brace yourself for April.
Now, while the presidency gives the Russians a chance to set the agenda at the Security Council, they can't halt debate. And the last time Russia was in the chair was February last year, the very month in which Vladimir Putin launched his invasion of Ukraine. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
To recap the top stories, the White House has confirmed US President Joe Biden will travel to Northern Ireland next week to mark the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. India has abstained from voting for a resolution to extend a UN investigation into Russia's alleged war crimes in Ukraine. And the husband of Scotland's former First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, has been arrested. That's the latest feature story news. Laura Makin-Isherwood reporting.
Your KCHW Morning Show, made possible by a donation from God-Fearing Brothers Auto Center. God-Fearing Brothers specializes in auto services, including repair, maintenance, and detailing. They also stock a full selection of tires, make glass repairs, offer towing, and have an auto sales lot on the corner of Highway 395 and Main Street at the light. For more information, you can visit the Auto Service Center at 806 East Main in Chewelah. Find them online at godfearingbrothers.com or by phone at 509-935-6414. KCHW-FM thanks God-Fearing Brothers for supporting public radio in Stevens County.
And by Chewelah Flooring.
Chewelah Flooring at 214 East Clay in the 3rd Street Mall offers a wide variety of products, including carpet, ceramic and porcelain tile, vinyl and laminate planks, and vinyl sheet flooring. Chewelah Flooring carries products for both commercial businesses and residential homes, including brands like National Flooring, Del Tile, Mannington, and Mohawk. They also offer blind repair. For more information, you can visit online at CheweLaFlooring.com, call 509-935-8021, or via email at CheweLaFlooring@gmail.com.
And we're back. It's KCHW 102.7. Continuing your Wednesday morning show. A lot of public, local stuff going on. And joining us for the next segment, Mr. Larry Fetter, who is a technical consultant for the Chewelah Parks and Recreation Department. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning.
All right. Thanks for joining us. We've had some talk about this. We've heard a little bit about it from the mayor before, too. And very interested in the survey that you asked us to post and what you're working toward. So let's start off again, just kind of a little bit about who you are and what you do, Larry.
Great. Thank you. Well, what I mostly am trying to do is retire, but so far it's not working out so much. I was, my career, I spent 40 years in parks and recreation at a variety of cities in the Northwest, Mercer Island, Enumclaw. I spent the last 10 years in the city of Hermiston. It was kind of my first time out of the state of Washington. So we decided to retire about a year and a half ago, and we were shopping around for where we were going to land next. And turned out we found Chewelah to be not only perfect, but it's the same place I grew up in. So very familiar to me.
All right.
It's been fascinating to get reconnected with the community, and loving a lot of it. So really appreciate the city. But that's kind of about me. When I was trying to get caught up on what's going on in Chewelah, and I knew we had a new mayor who was taking office about the same time that we were coming to town. I went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and Mayor McCunn was talking about his election platform and youth as a priority, and I really appreciated hearing that. And after the meeting, I asked him if there were any plans to replace the swimming pool, which we lost a few years ago. And I used to work at that swimming pool, so it was really kind of near and dear to me. It was how I got my career start in Parks and Recreation, of all things, right here in Chewelah. And so that loss was significant. And he goes, "Well, who are you?" And I spent a few minutes kind of sharing my story with him. And he goes, "Yeah, we could really use your background to do better with Parks and Recreation, to help him with his platform." And they're all good things. It's all about quality of life, how to make it Chewelah a more enjoyable place to live. It's we're kind of surrounded by recreation here with the golf course and 49 and natural recreation. There's lots of volunteer programs that go on a consistent basis. So there's a lot going on here, but we need to kind of look to the future. The mayor is very interested in kind of charting what our park system, so I'll say parks and recreation programming, what it looks like in the next 5 to 10 years, because without a plan, you may or may not get there. So I said, well, I'm willing to help. We ended up, you may remember this from our last conversation, we wrote a grant, got a planning grant, which kind of put me back in employment for the city to lead a planning project. And so we're knee deep into that planning work now. So I've got more to tell you about, but that's kind of the background getting us up to today.
All right. Now, just out of curiosity, because you said you grew up here, you graduate of JHS or local school?
Yep, JHS, go Cougs. And my parents continued to live here. So, bringing over the years, coming back for Easter and holidays and going to Chautauqua was kind of a real fun family thing for us to do. So yeah, when you're from a town like Chewelah, it always stays with you. You can take the boy out of the town, but you can't take the town out of the boy. So
definitely. I always tell people it's a very unique place, and I miss it being over here on the East Coast. I haven't seen another Chewelah yet. So
yeah, well, there's lesser versions of it out there, but so that's how I got here and what I'm up to.
Okay.
Helping the city.
So your task force has identified 3 areas of focus for this. What are those areas?
Yeah, so the mayor put together a task force of 20 people, and these aren't just your average folks. They represent stakeholder groups in and around the area. So we've got someone representing the Stevens County, the Tri-County Economic Development District. We've got the Chamber of Commerce. We've got the school district, of course. They're big partners. I have to use my cheat sheet to kind of get down. We've got the golf course represented. Several businesses in town are represented on this group. The health community and also New Health, which is starting their university, their healthcare university here in Chewelah. Pretty exciting. So there's a long list of folks that can help create the vision for what this park plan is going to offer, and but not just create the plan, but help implement it. And so we want to fashion this around, well, what's the school district need in the community? What's the community say it wants relative to trails and recreation and more parks, and where are we deficient in parks? So we've kind of done some work. The task force, has been meeting just twice so far, and I've just been really getting them up to speed on what we call park standards for Chewelah. And if I can, I'll give you a quick example. There's a national standard which says a community should have about 10 acres per 1,000 people. And so if you apply that national standard to Chewelah, about 2,700, you get, Chewelah should have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 27 acres of parks. And we have about half of that right now. We've got 14 acres of parks that are formally parks. Our large city park is 8 acres. And then there's a few smaller parks. That includes the disc golf course as well. So if you just apply the national standard, we're deficient. And where we're really deficient is on the south side of Main Street. There's not one park south of Main. So if you live on the south side of town, you don't have access to a park. You have to get in a car and drive typically to get to a park. And almost everybody, knows Chewelah as the park, right? So as we look to the future, and as Chewelah continues to grow, well, what are the opportunities to add some park acreage on that south side in particular? So that's one of the challenges that we're taking on as a task force strategically. So you asked, Scott, what are the 3 priorities? The first priority is an aquatic rec center, which really kind of took me back. I knew that swimming was going to be pretty high on their list because we lost the pool, but they came right out of the chute and said, we really want to focus on how we might get an indoor aquatic rec center, something like what the Camas wellness facility looks like, if you've seen that in Usk. And it's gorgeous. And sometime I'd like to come back and share some pictures of that facility with you, because it's really...
It is amazing. It is amazing.
It is, yeah.
And the problem with that is I know, I've went over there before and seen people from Chewelah there. And I know that when I had kids at home, they always wanted to go. But once the weather changes, there's a lot of people, me included, that don't want to drive over that mountain in the wintertime just to go for a swim. So it becomes really inconvenient. And I like that idea. I know that the cost could be very prohibitive to this. It would be a major undertaking. But it is something, I think, having a pool, that's awesome. But there's so much limited use with that. You get to use it for a few months out of the summer. And
an outdoor pool, yeah.
Yeah, and we have a huge elderly population. A rec center would be amazing. How you get there, well, that's up to you, Larry.
Right. Yeah, well, we just go drive around and pick people up, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, Larry,
go ahead, Mike.
One of the things that kind of popped in my brain you were talking is several years ago, there was a discussion about an aquatic center with the Washington State Department of Commerce. And I don't know if you've seen the work they've done that or not.
I have.
But I really like the idea. I think they were talking about the ground there by the fire station. And do you any idea where that went or where it's at, or is it sitting on the shelf? Or
well, I dug up that work, and so one of my pledges to myself, really, and to the task force, is to build on prior work. There's been a lot of planning work done in Chewelah over the last decade or so. The mayor is big into planning. They have a sub-area plan. They've done a lot of work kind of strategizing around how to revitalize our main street. So we're working, Mike, on what that facility would look like. It would be about the same scale or pretty close to the Camas Wellness Facility. That seems about the right scale for Chewelah. But we have identified several potential spots that would make sense for that. And we are in conversation about those right now. What it would look like, where it would go. You really want a facility like that to be presented well. So you want to kind of put it right out front. You don't want to bury it back in, some neighborhood where it's not doing its job to help present the community and what its values, its priorities are. So a wellness center can certainly help do that. You put it right up front and it's like, this is what Chewelah stands for. We're proud of this facility. When people come to town, they would notice it and want to spend some time there and maybe even consider Chewelah as a place for them to live. So those are all positive things around this indoor aquatic center. And the other thing, and Scott, you kind of touched on it, taking your kids to this facility, where are they going to learn to swim if they don't have a pool, right? So it's a big life safety issue. The part of my job is to come up with, well, how much is it going to cost? Where's it going to go? How do you pay for it? And then how do you operate it? And so those are all things that I'm going to be working on. So that, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, the community says it wants a pool, but without a plan to get one, it would die. It'd live a very short life, right? So it would just die on the shelf.
Yeah. See, one of my concerns all along is, building it is relatively easy. In my opinion, to get the money to do that, it's the ongoing operating costs that will kill it.
Yeah.
And so, and to me, as you put that plan together, if I was in a position to make a decision, that would be where my decision would lie. I mean,
what's the plan to keep it going?
Keep it going.
Not just keep the doors open, but you want a facility that's going to thrive, right? So you want to activate it. You don't want to walk into a building like that and wonder where the people are. So it's a kind of a YMCA type idea where it becomes kind of the center of the community, becomes a center for, a facility like that would offer a place for people to just casually meet, to have birthday parties, to have all kinds of social events. And so it's more than just a rec center. It becomes a full-on community center. So that's really what the Camas facility does. And that's the model that we think makes sense for Chewelah.
All right.
How do you package that? How do you make it attractive to, folks in town? And Scott, to your point, you really need to be thinking about, what are the demographics of our community? Why would someone who's more mature be interested in supporting this idea? So that's my work, and that's what we're up to on that point. And that's just number one priority. Before I leave that one, did you guys have questions about that one?
Not right now.
Okay. I can't wait to see the plan.
So when's it going to happen, Larry? Give us a date.
Well, our timeline for putting the plan together, we're wrapping up this fall. So you'll know soon enough. And I'd be happy to come back like around June-ish and just share with you what that's looking like. So that's the number one priority. The second priority for our task force has really centered around trails and building what we call multimodal trails, which are these paved, like Centennial Trail in Spokane is a multimodal trail. You can use it for biking, you can use it for rollerblading, jogging, walking. It's that kind of trail system. And so one of the things that is built into our planning process is what would that look like in Chewelah? And what are the logical connections? And so what came out immediately with the task force is, hey, we'd like to really connect the main part of town, I'll call it Chewelah South, with Chewelah North, which is really the golf course, right? So they would like to figure out a path that makes sense to make that connection, have it that trail navigate probably along Chewelah Creek in town. So it has that north-south connection all the way through town, and be part of a larger regional trail system conceptually that would go from, say, Deer Park to Kettle Falls. And so our portion would just be, what does that look like between, say, the casino and working your way through town, but then have a spur that goes up to the golf course. And I haven't run into anybody that doesn't think that's a great idea. I mean, it's like, well, how are you going to pay for it? Where's it going to go? Those details people get a little interested in. But the idea of having a trail like that seems to be pretty darn popular with almost virtually everybody I've talked to about this. And I do a lot of talking about this.
All right. So
I think when you start looking at community assets, I mean, on the golf course side, besides the golf course, you've got the Gold Mountain Land Trust, which is a great, ending point. And then just my familiarity up here, you've got great access coming up through some of the smaller draws or canyons, so you're not, they're basically utility easements that were used when they brought natural gas in. So it keeps you off of the road. And I think, in fact, I know it'd be well received. One of the things that we did at the golf course is we contacted the Chewelah Land Trust so we could start utilizing them as a resource for people who live here. Because a lot of people don't understand that 400 acres borders the golf course. And frankly, it's very accessible.
Yeah.
Which makes it more of a community asset too. And then
you're exactly right, Mike. You're hitting all the important points. So as we want to utilize a path that makes sense, you've got a big elevation gain getting to the golf course, right, and to Gold Hill. So, yeah, how do you do that in a way that still works? And there are some existing easements that we can take advantage of. And what's the logical path? So we've got that on paper conceptually, and I'm testing that out now to see if there isn't a better route or some modification that we need to make to that. So that's the trail part of this.
So my question is, and then kind of doing this in a lump with the trails and the aquatic centers and stuff, have you seen in your experience a community the size of Chewelah be able to implement things like this? Is that a possibility? It seems really huge. Okay.
It is, and there are several examples. that I'm going to use as case models for Chewelah, because it's and they're not all the same. So there's a little bit of variation. The economics are different between these communities, similar sized, but maybe it's more into agriculture, for example. I'll just use an example that I'm going to be focusing in on as a case study. It's in Boardman, Oregon. If you're familiar, they have a very similar sized community. It's about 3,000 people. It's centered right on the Columbia River, and they're heavy into agriculture, and it's part of they have a very active industrial center there, and they've attracted a whole bunch of those data centers, Amazon and other groups that have become kind of a backbone of their economy. And about 7 years ago, they already had a Park and Recreation District that was formed way back in the 60s when McNary Dam came in. Well, no, that wasn't McNary. It was the John Day Dam. When the John Day Dam came in, they moved the town of Boardman out of the way. It was a much smaller community, and they created a park district, and it mostly sat unexercised until about 7 years ago, when really led by the leadership of Boardman, so city council, but then also the industrial park said, look, we need a way to attract more workers. We don't have enough employees for these industries that we have, and we want to have a rec center. And they built an amazing rec center. It's actually scaled even bigger than the Camas facility. It's like, it has 2 full-size gyms, just an amazing fitness center. And it was part of their economic development platform to build that. So the Port of Boardman is heavily involved in the management of this facility. It's actually managed by the Park and Recreation District, but they passed a levy, built this facility, which is overscaled for our use, because they're going to have a much bigger population soon. But their district population is about 5, probably pushing 6,000, but their city population is half of that. And so if you take that idea and you apply it here to Chewelah, and if you create a park district that's approximately the size of our school district, you've got double the population. You also have twice the amount of people you need to convince that this is a good idea. But that's the challenge, right? Like if you put something out that's a good idea and people can support it, you can get it built. And to your point, Mike, you can have an ongoing management of it. And these facilities do generate revenue, but they are not self-sufficient usually. They're subsidized. So the city would need to be a partner. The county would need to be a partner, potentially the school district, the health community, because it would have warm water therapy pools and things that would be, the one in Boardman actually has breakout rooms for therapy, which I think is a super good idea. So they have some of their healthcare professionals that are doing physical therapy out of this facility. So they're pretty smart about designing that in. And of course, their health community helps support their operating costs. So yeah, there's a fee to participate in it. And those fees are super reasonable, something like you would find at a health club or a YMCA. But that's how they did it. And that's a pretty good case model for Chewelah with some tweaking involved. So it's more than a pipe dream. It's something we could really make happen here.
Wow, that's exciting.
Well, and there's really, unless I might be wrong, but there's really nothing north of Spokane to the Canadian border.
Nothing like
395.
Yeah, on 395. Yeah, Camas I think would be the closest facility that's similar, and so, gosh, if they can do it.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of out there.
Yeah, it's out there, and they, it's their tribal membership is involved, of course, and that's
right
how they got their facility. And part of our stakeholder group, our task force, includes the Spokane tribe. So they're right in there with us. They love the idea of a trail connection between their casino and the city. They want to see Chewelah prosper. They're making a huge investment with the hotel, as part of their casino.
Right.
And so I'm working with their planning office out in Wilpennett, because if our plans can complement what they're doing, then, we're all better off, right? And you could say the same thing about the New Health Wellness, the university that they've got going. So, you get enough partners together and you take this big pie and chop it up. It's like, okay, well, now you got enough people to actually make this happen. It would immediately activate the space. So that's the aquatics, recreation, and trails. And there's more to talk about too, but I want to give you guys a chance to weigh in on what we've covered so far.
Well, I think one of the things that jumps out to me is for years, my mother-in-law belonged to a group of ladies that would go to Colville to do their exercises in the water up there.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, just from a pure economic standpoint, if you became the drawing card for the regional area, that's going to bring people into town, not only to use that facility, but to use the restaurants and to use the retail businesses and the variety of things. So it becomes really an economic driver.
It does. And that's why location is really important. So if you put it on the outskirts of town, you wouldn't get that kind of Main Street benefit, Mike, that you're talking about. Like, once you get your water walking done, you would have the reverse thing happening then. You'd have people from Colville, Deer Park, wherever, Addie, Blue Creek, coming to Chewelah on a regular basis, families, etc. And then, of course, let's go grab a hamburger afterwards. Let's go get some coffee. Let's go, and so it becomes a contributor economically to kind of revitalize our Main Street. And we're starting to see some of those business fronts in Main Street. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we're starting to see some activity on Main Street. So I think the timing's pretty good that way.
Are you keeping, I was going to say the same thing Mike was after you mentioned that, after he asked that question about all the way up 395. In this planning process, is that in your head somewhere that, if you build it, they will come, and that we could end up getting so many people from Colville that the place would be too full for somebody to Chewelah to walk through the door? I mean,
we just put a sign up that limits Colville people. That's pretty easy.
So your ID at the door.
Yeah.
Because you really could end up with something.
You're going to have to wait 10 minutes.
Either that or have a dual pricing structure.
There you go. Local prices.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gets tough. But I can almost see that maybe as a problem where maybe Usk doesn't get hit like that because there's a giant mountain in between us, but that where maybe this could draw on the whole county.
Yeah. Well, Scott, I'd love to have that problem.
Okay.
I really, I can't imagine that would be the case. That would now I could see this, and this does happen. In the last city that I worked for was Hermiston, and it was kind of a center hub for a lot of these rural towns. And very often, the school districts would, from these neighboring cities, would bring busloads of kids into our aquatic center. I mean, literally busloads. And that was a little overwhelming. We needed to kind of have a heads up on that because, they would overrun we ended up setting up special swimming lessons for these groups because, they were taking all the available time and we needed to manage that better. So we ended up actually creating more evening swims and more evening lessons for these rural communities. So, I mean, it's rare, I think, when you get that kind of, heavy external use like that. Usually it's kind of, it kind of manages itself mostly. Like people have to adjust to their own schedules. So I haven't seen, even in Spokane, like the YMCAs are big into this. It's a pretty steady flow of traffic. There's peak times and low times, but I wouldn't say that there is, like these big off the chart blips where they're having to limit people coming in the door. That would be a nice problem to have, I would think.
Sure. Like you said, though, it is manageable. You can have adult swims, for people with physical disabilities and that kind of stuff. So,
and people tend to, when you have a facility like that, and Camas has got a walking trail and walking track, and people just gravitate to different parts of the facility depending on what their interests are. So yeah, it's mostly self-managing.
All right.
That way.
So
Larry,
I originally posted. I'll go ahead, Mike, and then I'll tell.
I was going to say, if you had a chance to look at the Carpe agreement that
Yeah.
was put together, because I know the surveys in there, they went ahead with the high school side of that.
Yep.
It's got some pretty powerful data in it.
It does, and it really kind of, and that's part of the work that I'm building on. So that is going to be largely referenced in the work that I'm doing, and then we're going to drill down even deeper to because some of the same trends that we saw back when that work was done, they're going to continue, and we're starting to see that in the survey data that's starting to come in. And this might be a good time to talk about the survey a little bit.
And that's what I wanted to tell folks that are listening is at the beginning of the show, I posted a couple links to the survey, but I must have made an error clicking. And if you click on it, all it does is take you to the little banner that says "Take our survey." Apparently, I just created a link to the picture. So I've went and fixed that to the actual survey, and I posted it on our Facebook page, and I have pinned it to the top, so it is easy to find.
Well, thank you.
So go ahead and explain to what the survey entails, and hopefully I'm sure you're gathering more information to help you along this process.
We are. So fundamental to any planning, whether it was at the Carpe or any kind of what we call a park and recreation master plan, is public engagement, because you don't want to be throwing out ideas that people don't support, right? So you want to have your plan be fully representative of the population that it's trying to create the plan for. So how do you do that? Well, I'm going to do it in multiple ways. The survey is just one component. We've already launched it. I just launched it, in fact, Monday. It's available on the city's website, the Chamber of Commerce website, and now your website. Thank you. And we're going to be posting it on other websites, but it all goes back to the same source. And it's about 14 questions. And it really drills in on what people's recreation habits are, what they would like to see, and it helps give a gauge. I don't know if you guys participated in that survey, did you? Okay, so you know already what it is. And so as an inducement, we're offering a drawing every month. So anyone who participates in the drawing and leaves their email address, because we need to contact the winner, there will be a $100 dinner certificate at one of our local restaurants for each month. So you can only do the survey one time. So we're going to be able to restrict and track that. But people are eligible for that drawing. And so I would like to have, in a population this size of about 2,700, I think if we can get that number up to about 300 or 400, that'd be great. And I think we can do it.
So Larry, I took that survey and just, it's very, very intuitive, and it took me, maybe 5 minutes, if that. I mean,
great.
It's pretty straightforward. The only thing, maybe if you could send me the direct link to that, then I can get it to Brandon Hansen so he can get it to the golf course communication. Because we have an internal communication stream up here. And I've found in the past that that's been pretty effective in getting people to take a look at it.
Thank you, Mike. I'll definitely do that. We've got Cindy and John Wilmoth off the golf course. Are they back yet? They're due back soon, I think.
Yeah.
And so, they've offered to help me make those connections and get that survey out there. And I'll follow up with you particularly on that point, because, we definitely want a cross section of all the population. Chewelah in a very comprehensive way. So it includes, of course, North and South. So that survey information, we will be done. So we've got April, May, and June. So at the end of June, we'll have all that data collected about what people's interests are. And then that'll become the foundation of our plan, again, building on the Carpe and other plans, so that we have a really comprehensive cross-section of what Chewelah wants its parks and recreation system to look like in the next 5 to 10 years. That's really the goal. And then it'll list, of course, all these different activities, aquatic center, trails, and prioritized, and a strategy for each one of those financially to how to get it. And so, grants, I'm kidding, but bake sales, whatever it takes, right? to put that plan into action. That's really where the rubber meets the road, is how you're going to make this thing happen, and what are the what if you only did 2 of these 10 items or 20 items? Great, right? But my goal is to have a strategy for each one of those items and then help the city implement those items. And some of it's grant work. Some of it is just, again, coming up with strategies that make sense. And sometimes it's private investment. A new development comes to town. You've got a trail described through, it becomes then the developer's obligation to do that portion of the trail. So there's different ways to kind of chop up this work. But without a plan, there's nothing worse than having a trail just stop because there wasn't a plan to take it further, right?
Right. Sure. So, and I don't know whether the answer to this, but as new development comes in, are the developers required to set aside a certain amount of open space for parks?
You do that through, those are called park impact fees. And right now, we need to lay the foundation. Without a strong plan, you can't obligate developers to a portion of that plan. Okay. You can, Mike, and we will be using this plan to say, okay, and it's no different than, let's say the city has a sidewalk plan, and then you're going to develop in a vacant lot, you have to put in your portion of that sidewalk. It's the same idea that would apply to the park system in general. And that can be done through, park impact fees, which can be dollars, which can help support any development within the system that the city prioritizes. So it could be spray pads or new playgrounds, any of those things. But it can also, a developer can often choose to set property aside within their proposed development for parks. And, a lot of times it's the wet ground that you can't put a house on anyway, but, right. But those are valuable properties, to make available for those new developments. And so it's a long way answering the question. We need to have the plan to get to the point where you can obligate a developer. And so that's part of what we're up to.
Yeah. All right.
I've kind of got a backward question here because I think we're kind of heading toward the end of the survey. One of the things I noticed over the years is our city park right there across from the bowling alley where the bathrooms are. That has taken a hit over the past decade and a half, couple decades. There was some wooden playground in there, playground equipment in there that got to a point where it's dangerous. Nail heads sticking out, sharp edges, slivers from the wood, and that kind of stuff. And it got tore out but not replaced. And we have one slide there next to the Boy Scout building that was there when I was in school.
Right.
Does any of these plans look at that existing playground equipment infrastructure being upgraded as well?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Scott, because I have I grew up in that park too. In fact, the evolution of that park is pretty interesting because it was in its day when it was first conceived, it probably felt like a pretty big space. But now Chewelah has matured to the point where it's our main park, but it's on the smallest size for what we call a community park where, people are driving to it. And so it's trying to do a lot of things. And so part of the work that I'm doing is to rethink some of those spaces. Like, do we really need an RV park taking up a pretty good chunk of the city park when there's now multiple private facilities, including the golf course, that offer RVing? And so the need when that RV park was first established way back in the 60s, I think, there were no other opportunities for RVers. Well, now we've got all that space tied up in the park. So to rethink that space, and to your point, Scott, rethink the playground, rethink its current uses, and then plan for the future is definitely part of what I'm up to. So in my mind, I would like a strategy for an improved playground that is more hardened, if you will, that's more modern and hardened, because I've had plenty of super cool playgrounds in my career that were not hardened. In other words, they were made out of materials like wood, or the fall protection surface is got pea gravel and things like that. Those things become maintenance problems, and to keep a wooden facility available and maintained is very difficult. The modern facilities, and you've seen them, if you go to a modern facility in Spokane or other communities, they're much more industrial oriented, and they typically will segregate the uses into two age groups. You've got the preschool kids, and then you've got the older kids. So you want to separate them by use. And so there's some work that really could happen. I'm going to use the word should happen to our playground to modernize it, because those become, again, super destinations to bring people into town. And, you picnic, you got the kids have a safe place to go. And you can kind of let them off leash a little bit and let them enjoy the park and the playground. So it's a long way of telling you, I'm going to look at our existing facilities and make some recommendations about how we can improve some of them.
Now, see, and I've always been a believer of, low-hanging fruit to make an impact.
Yeah.
And that to me would be huge.
I agree with you. I really agree. And not necessarily inexpensive, but visually and functionally would make a big impact. You're exactly right. And there would be a lot of support for it. It'd be, what the projects like that I've worked on that have made the most impact have been when the user groups are involved in picking what the product looks like, in the end. So you get a bunch of moms groups together. By the way, I'm going to any group that'll listen to me. So today's a pretty good example. At noon, I'm going to Kiwanis, and then I'm going to the Lions tonight, and kind of just plant some seeds with those folks about what I'm up to, what would they like to see in our park system, those kinds of, get their fingerprints on these ideas, so that when it comes time to organize an installation party, the Lions and Kiwanis show up and, they're ready to go. They just need a plan to work off of. So this community has done a really nice job. The Barber Complex is a great example of how the community kind of rolls up its sleeves and gets in there and makes things happen. But we need to do it in a way that, again, plans for the future and is on a commercial level, so that that these assets become available for over the long term. And people just love them, So it gets down to surfacing. What do the fences look like? How do you manage pets? Those become now pretty important issues. And Chewelah does not have a Parks and Recreation department currently. So these are things that are kind of managed as best Chewelah can through our Public Works department when it comes to maintenance, but we don't really have a Park and Recreation department whose job it would be to organize this and manage this. So we're trying to do the best we can. And who knows, maybe this park district idea could change that. That could be a huge game changer for Chewelah, but it's part of how Chewelah is going to have to kind of mature, and how bad do we want it?
That's the question. Because you had mentioned at one point maybe having a tax base that supports this. Have you seen that? So you've seen that in communities, and that's something a lot of people will turn away from. I remember several years ago when we were running school bond issues to run get a new school bond. You've got and it could be a thing that hated, and not to pick up on Mike and the folks living up in Chewelah North, but in a guess, and that's a guess, is the elderly population up at the golf course could be the reason those school bonds never passed because they're not affected by, I guess because of their age, they're not affected, or it has nothing to do with them. So they tend to, I don't want my taxes to go up, instead of having it sold to them in a way that this makes our whole community more vibrant.
I think, the foundation of that idea, if we're going to really contemplate a larger tax base, let's call it a park district. If we're really going to consider that idea and make it a reality, it's got to make sense to the average person. Like whether I'm at the golf course or whether I'm in town or, whether I'm in an alley or wherever you are, it's got to make sense to you financially and practically. And you don't need everybody to vote yes, but you need a majority. And hard. The school districts, that it's a big challenge. Like, okay, how do you you use the word sell, Scott? How do you sell, or how do you present something in a way that makes sense to the average person, regardless of age? And so some of this is confidence. Do they have the confidence? Does the average voter have the confidence to say, yeah, I'm going to trust you with my money to do what you said you're going to do? And that's always something that the school district's challenged with, but whether it's a health district or a fire district, or in this case, a park district, which is very common, right? So you have to establish some level of credibility. And the work that I'm doing right now, spending time with all these different groups, it's easy to say no to something or someone if you don't know them. But if they're showing up at your meetings all the time and ideas make sense, it becomes much harder to say no. So that's, you can't bypass that foundation work. And that's the work that I'm really doing right now. It's like, who are these groups? How can I offer them something that makes sense to them, whether it's a reading club or, we've got a robust arts community here. We talked about this last time. If they don't see that it makes sense for them, why would they support it? So and it's not just the arts community, because they're kind of not fractured, but they're subgroups. So, we live in a political world, and what's it going to take for someone to support these ideas? And that's really what I'm up to.
All right. Any closing words as we head toward the end of the show?
Well, not really, but I'd love to have you invite me back around June, where I could share some images and some of the survey data, because I think, I would like to just invite your audience to find our survey, take the 5 minutes to quickly fill it out. It doesn't matter where you live. So Scott, you on the East Coast, your ideas are valid too. So we're not going to be treating that data really differently, but you have an experience and an interest. So we want your feedback. But the more feedback we get, the better. And that's just going to make our plan stronger.
Excellent. All right. And don't forget, I did post the link to the survey at the top of our Facebook page. It's pinned up there, so it's easy for you to find. And if you missed any part of today's broadcast, it's about 30 minutes in on our videos that are posted on YouTube and Facebook every time we do a show. So you can go back and watch yourself, Larry.
Oh, fantastic.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Noticed, I've got my halo on.
Yeah, you look great, Mike.
That means it was a great show.
Yeah.
I thought it was a Santa hat.
Magnetic personality. Absolutely.
All right, Larry, thank you for your work you're doing on this, coming back to Chewelah and really sparking this, something that was much needed in the community. I'm glad the mayor wrangled you in.
All right. Thanks for having me, you guys.
All right. Once again, Larry Fetter, Parks and Recreation Technical Consultant for the City of Chewelah. Thank you, Larry. Big round of applause. And we don't have to invite you back, Larry. You just invite yourself anytime.
Oh, perfect.
All right. Closing words, Mike Bentz.
Yeah, only one thing forgot earlier is if you've got the time, go to the city council meeting tonight, because the presentation on retail strategies is going to be there.
All right.
On the 4 pillars, of which what Larry's talking about is definitely built into those pillars. So it'll be a short presentation, and then the city council will make some considerations after that. So we'd like to have people show up. It's a written rule. Actually, the more people that show up, the more likely things get done.
That's right.
So I'm inviting everybody and anybody that has an interest in the downtown, or actually Chewelah redevelopment or revitalization is probably a better term, to show up. We'd like to have standing room only.
Get involved in your community, because all this stuff and what Larry's talking about, it all connects.
Right. It's all intertwined. It absolutely is. And it just astounds me when I talk to people and they say, well, I didn't know anything about this, or I didn't know anything about that. And I'm thinking, where else are you going to communicate other than early and often? Really, that's the big thing. So, show up if you'd like to hear what's going on.
All right. There you go. Once again, my co-host, Mike Bentz, and thanks to Larry Fetter. And don't forget, tomorrow night, first Thursday Art Walk, Streets at Chewelah. Have a great day. And keep on listening to Northern Lights Public Radio.
Thanks again, Larry.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye.
Your KCHW Morning Show, made possible by a donation from God-Fearing Brothers Auto Center. God-Fearing Brothers specializes in auto services, including repair, maintenance, and detailing. They also stock a full selection of tires, make glass repairs, offer towing, and have an auto sales lot on the corner of Highway 395 and Main Street at the light. For more information, you can visit the Auto Service Center at 806 East Main in Chewelah. Find them online at godfearingbrothers.com or by phone at